Hello and welcome to Master Gardening. I'm your host, Bud Qualk, and we're here today at the Master Gardener Demonstration and Trial Garden. And we've got a lot of stuff going on, and one of them's digging potatoes. Oh my gosh, look at that. So stay tuned, we're coming right back. Yeah, today we're here at the garden, and I see you got some help down here. This is Norman Wallace. He's the president of the Master Gardeners right now, and you're kind of in charge of the garden, right? Right now you kind of give the...
They asked me to give leadership.
Not the president or not...
Well, I'm actually president of the Master Gardeners.
I mean,
but this project, I'm just the main guy. So the one who does a lot of the work.
And I know Nava Knuckles, she's not here today, but this has been her garden for 10, 15 years. I think this has been here for 15 years.
Tough worker here.
Yes, she
Long
has.
Time.
Yes,
yeah.
And she's done, no telling how many hours she put in here.
There's a bed over here of flowers. It's beautiful.
And this is a demonstration garden, and it got started because University of Kentucky wanted to find out how plants would grow down here we're in a different time, not time zone, but a different growth zone than anybody else. We're 7. Compared to 6 and 6B.
That's right.
As you go up to the state, so we can grow a lot of stuff here that they can't. So that's why they wanted this demonstration garden here, and it's grown. And now we have this vegetable plot here. But before we get started with that, how did you get into gardening? Is this your first project?
As a teenager, my dad gave me assignments, and I did what I was told. I didn't really have any passion about it particularly.
I remember those days.
Yeah. When I was in my mid-30s, the organic gardening thing kind of came along.
With the old magazine, no color print, just
that's the one.
Black and white.
That's the one, and I got interested. I was in Maryland. I had shale in the backyard, so I paid for a dump truck load of soil, brought it in, and corralled it with some timbers, and grew about 300 square feet of garden, and had fun with it. And then I moved to Minnesota. And behind my garage, extending out into the city's right of way for a drainage ditch, I grew about 600 square feet in grow beds, 3.5 feet wide. I never walked in the grow bed. I had walk space wide enough to walk in.
Well, back then, that grow beds were just revolutionary back then.
It was new. Nobody else was doing it.
Right.
Nobody I knew.
Now everybody does it.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think there's a reason why people are doing it. It works. I didn't have a tiller. I didn't want a tiller. I was working and traveling. I wasn't even at home a lot of the time. And the grow bed worked for us. We learned how to do double rowing within a grow bed. If it's 3.5 feet wide, I could have 2 rows, about 10, 12 inches apart, and maximize the space. So it's fun. And then I came here, retired back to where I grew up, and did conventional gardening with the tiller and the tractor and all that at the home place for 3 years. And I still have about 1,000 square feet on my brother's property, 3.5 miles from the house, and I come here.
That's not handy, yeah.
Now, Carol Ulrich was our president a couple of years before I came to be president, and she asked me if I'd give leadership to the veggie plot because we hadn't done anything for 2 or 3 years. It was just laying dormant. And so this is my 3rd season. And there's about 4 or 5 helpers. You see some of them back here.
They're picking the heck out of that. Yeah, they got baskets of food. I see about 50 tomatoes already. They've already picked this morning.
Yeah, we've done well in providing produce. The last 2 summers, from this 800 plus square feet, we have produced over 400 pounds each year. We've given more than 200 pounds to Family Service Society. I checked yesterday. So far this year, we've harvested 148 pounds, and we've given 83 pounds to Family Service Society and 9 pounds to Martha's Vineyard.
Oh my God, that's a lot of produce for a little spitty spot like that. And that's. I hope people at home are thinking, you've got a little side yard there. You could do the same thing.
It can happen.
And we're going to talk about that more here, about the benefits of doing a gardening at home, even a small pot or even in containers. Sometimes people, that's all they've got is their deck. But that's all I've got right now. I've got a big, huge thing about this big of herbs. I got to have my herbs.
Yeah, that works.
Now,
we haven't done a lot with herbs in this bed, but there's an herb bed over in the perennial part, and so we do have herbs close by. There's some chives here, and we'll work on that a little more. But what we wanted to show here is what somebody could do in their backyard with limited space maybe without a tiller,
Yeah.
do no-till, do grow beds, do vertical growing where you have limited space. So you have trellises, you have tomato cages.
Lots of cages. I love cages.
yeah.
That's the best way, I think.
And so we've done that with cucumbers and green beans and tomatoes, what we call vertical growing. And so that's what people can do at home, and they don't have to dig up a whole field to do it. The first year when you have a grow bed, maybe a little rough getting it dug up, but after
That's
that,
the hard part.
that's right. After that, it gets easier because you don't walk in it, you don't compact it. You take
Not a
your
lot of
shovel-
weeding.
That's right, especially if you use mulch. We put newspaper, 2 or 3 sheets of newspaper down when we plant, and then we put 2 or 3 inches of straw on top. It inhibits weed growth,
I don't see any weeds.
and it maximizes water retention.
Yeah.
It adds humus to the soil as
it
decomposes.
decays. Yeah.
It keeps your shoes and clothes clean, and it keeps the veggies clean.
You're not supposed to be wallering down on that stuff.
Well, I get on my knees. My back hurts, so I just drop down on my knee. It's okay.
I see the ladies picking that. They're not down on, but you're right. And when it rains, you don't get your feet so muddy.
You don't get muddy.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
Well, you've got a lot of different techniques and things going on here. I'd like to take a look at each one of them. The green
Okay.
beans, especially, that was one
Okay.
I've done a lot of things in my life with gardening. I've never seen a green bean deal like that, so I'm going to copy that. That'll be the first thing I steal from
All right.
your ideas, and people at home will see some things maybe that they can steal
Sure.
from the master gardeners. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go down here and take a look at some of these different techniques you're using. Okay.
All right.
All right. Norman, this one's up on stilts.
Yep.
Explain to us what we're doing here.
Well, it's an elevated bed, obviously, and it's one where you don't have to bend your back. If you're handicapped, maybe that helps.
Reach it from a wheelchair,
If
couldn't you?
It's right. And it may be a little high, but it can be reached from a wheelchair, yes. We've grown lettuce, we've grown turnip greens, kale, Swiss chard, those kinds of things here. And in about 2 weeks, mid-August, we'll come in and start maybe some kale and some turnip greens.
Some fall crops.
About half and half,
Yeah.
And they'll bear until Thanksgiving and possibly even later.
And a lot of gardeners miss out on that in the fall. I think the coal crops do better in the fall here than they do in the spring.
Well, we have a long fall.
Yeah.
We can have turnip greens till, well, I have picked turnip greens at my house on New Year's Eve.
And the frost, sometimes we don't get it till November, even
That's right.
December.
Yeah.
And these plants, a little frost doesn't hurt them. Usually.
That's right, yeah.
It has to be a hard
Yeah.
freeze to.
If they grow well, as they usually do, we'll have greens from here to Thanksgiving at least. Yeah. And the weather is cooler when you're out here harvesting and doing
It's
your
much better than
work.
it is today. Yeah.
It's a little warm.
It's a little bit warm
when
today.
you sow the seed, maybe.
Okay, behind us here, this looks like cucumbers, but they're really growing well. Sometimes I have trouble getting them to connect to the fence and get them going.
They need some coaxing.
Coaxing.
Yeah, they don't always climb well.
What
This
is that?
This is an Armenian cucumber, very sweet, tender, mild, and this one kind of the weather did it in, but it's still good. It's just not shaped well. The cucumbers have passed their peak. They're not as good as they were a week ago, but as you can see, they're still bearing. We have Armenians here, and in the middle we have market moors, which is a good pickler.
Okay.
For making pickles. And down here we have tender green, which is more of a slicing cucumber. What you see here is the vertical lift so that you don't have to spread out all over you in a small
And they
space
will.
grow up.
If you didn't have this fence, they'd be taking about a 10 or 15 foot circumference.
In a backyard, you can go 6 feet, put about 6 to 10 to 12 plants in that row, and you can have cucumbers.
And
good
this
crop.
is much more than any four-person family would ever need.
We give some of it to the Family Service Society, and there's 3 or 4 of us who'll take 1 or 2.
Okay. Yeah. And then what's this next to this? This is, I know what it is, but
This is a crop that wants to grow in the place where it's growing. It's a hot weather, humidity kind of a crop. It's okra. And it's Clemson, spineless, I believe is the right one here. And it just does well in heat, it does well in drought, it does well when it rains. Sometimes it grows tall. This year is not a tall year.
It does well in the frying pan with bacon grease,
It does
too.
well, and it does well in lots of other ways too. My wife's learned several ways to fix okra.
This is what, I'd like to pick them about this size right here. This is really a tender
I
size.
usually let it get a little bigger.
Some people let them get, you know, they get
Oh, yeah.
6 or 8 inches long, but those are kind of tough for me. I guess for soups and things, that's okay.
Good for soups and good for cross-cutting, breading, and pan frying too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You
Oh,
can
yeah.
you can take big okra and make it taste great.
And again,
that way.
this is a lot of okra.
The row is
you can
16 feet, and there's about 25 or 30 plants here.
You can see 8 or 10 fruits right there on just
Coming
that one
still.
end there, right there.
Yep.
Yeah. So and the flowers are beautiful.
Yep.
And these plants are still looking good. I've seen sometimes if you didn't take care of them, they get a little ratty and the leaves fall off. But you guys are doing a great
Well,
job
when
with
it got
those.
dry in July, we did water. We've watered 3 times. We've just used the hose, applied the water right at the base, go down the row a time or two slowly, come back, do it again, and let the water soak into the ground.
That's a good point. I've seen people just spray it on the plants, and you're just wasting your water.
Yeah, we don't even try to wet this. We just wet at the base. Try to get it to the
Deep as
roots
you can
and
get it.
deep into the soil.
If you just water a little bit, it's worse than watering at all because it makes the roots want to go up
Shallow,
next to
that's right.
grow
Yeah, we
shallow,
want-
and then
we
a
want
drought
to-
kill them.
That's right. When we do this, we've done it 3 times in about a 10-day spread through July. And we'll have to do it again this week probably. But we don't have an irrigation system, so we just use the hose and we come and
You've got some
put
workers
it
though.
down here. Well, these helpers are great, yeah.
Sharon,
Well, it's a team project, and we enjoy what we do. Once you get into growing this stuff and see the produce, it really, it's kind of contagious. You sort of catch it and you
yeah.
share it, and gardeners do best when they share anyway, because I got more of one thing than I need, say tomatoes, and you got okra, and I
I'll
don't.
trade
and
you, yeah.
We trade.
Barter.
And it's right. And I harvested 55 butternut squashes several summers ago, and a friend had too many sweet potatoes. And we went pound for pound, I think 12, 13 pounds a piece.
You got scientific.
He got squash, I got sweet potatoes, and we were both happy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's move on down. You got your helpers.
That's Sharon Dersheimer, longtime member, 6-year member of
That's a long
of
time.
association. She and I were in the same class. She's a native of Ballard County, moving back there, retired school teacher, and she likes to garden.
And your other two, Geneva?
Geneva Fisher from here in Paducah, and she's really good scout in the garden. She sees the bugs, she sees the eggs, she tells me what's going on when I can't even see it.
You got to have good eyesight, and I don't have that.
She's got good eyes, and she waters. She knows how to water. She knows how to really make it go in deep.
And then you got Bonnie.
Bonnie Koblitz came here from Colorado just a year or so ago.
Hey, did she bring any with her?
Well, I don't think so.
For medicinal purposes only?
Yeah, not that I know of. Yeah, Bonnie,
She's got connections, though.
she's a good gardener. She was active, a master gardener in Colorado, and transferred here.
Oh.
And so she's just new this year.
And you can exchange ideas. I'm sure they do it differently out there. They get
do it
different plants and
differently
what
there.
have you.
Yep.
Especially if you get up on the mountains and stuff.
Yeah.
It's really a
Yeah.
completely different world. What are these things down here, these vines?
Well, we have 3 kinds of squash. On this end, we have zucchini. They just picked one that got a little too big, but it's still okay. It's over there in the
in the
box.
pile over here.
Well, if it gets big, you can peel it, take out the seeds, and still make zucchini bread. You'll also notice that they're elevated. They're on hills or in a row here where we pulled dirt up. That's very important in this property because the terrain is totally flat. There's no drainage off. So when
For
it rains,
miles, yeah.
for rains, it's just going to stay right here. So in order to keep the veggies out of the muck, where they can't outcompete the weeds in the young stages,
pull the dirt up.
Pull the dirt up, make a row 5-6 inches high, foot and a half wide, and plant on top of that.
Another advantage in the spring, that hill the soil
It
warms up quicker,
dries out.
dries out, so you can start planting earlier.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is right.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. And then on the other side of the zucchini, you've got
This is winter squash.
Butternut.
A whole different animal. That's butternut. You can see one right there. That's the best one, and there's a small one down here. This one's already getting toward maturity. That's a nice fruit. That'll be a 2-pounder. Winter squash is totally different. It's more like pumpkins than it is summer squash. And the way it works is you harvest it in August or September. You don't have to can it, you don't have to freeze it, you don't pickle it, you don't dehydrate it, you just wipe it off, put it in the cool spot in your house. And if you know who Roger Swaim is with Victory Garden,
oh yeah, Victory Garden.
he told me he put the coolest place in his house under his bed.
He's a dandy. He's different. Yeah, he's special.
So we have harvested from my garden at my brother's place. We've harvested from about 16, 17 plants. We harvested more than 2 fruits per plant last week. I have 36, 7, 8 butternut squashes. They'll average 1.5 pounds. So I've got 55, 60 pounds of butternut squash.
Have you ever battered and deep fried the blossoms?
I have not. Yes,
That's
we did try it years ago. My wife did that. That's right.
Yeah, and you've got all kind of blossoms here, plenty enough for breakfast anyway.
Yeah, we haven't done it lately.
Yeah,
They're beautiful blossoms.
It's hard to think to do that. You know,
it is. It is. You don't want to take away fruit.
That's right.
The bees get into that, and it's fun. I have some photography where I have bees right in the squash blossom.
We just had one going, that plant over there. They were going right there.
Oh, they love okra.
You can see them getting in there right now. Yeah.
I think the okra blossom is a really neat trumpet. It's
beautiful.
Flower.
Yeah. You'd think that hummingbirds would like it, but I don't think they do.
They don't. You could use that as an ornamental in your front yard.
This cage is as tall as I am.
That's rebar. It's about 5 or 6 feet. Rebar is concrete reinforcement stuff, and somebody else had provided these cages. They were already here, and so we used those to cage tomatoes. I don't know if I told you, but this is cattle wire.
Cattle?
Just cattle wire. It's used, and somebody gave it to us.
Yeah.
And it's cheap. If you know a farmer that has cattle wire, you can get a few feet.
That's where my first tomato cages came from. And they're pretty short.
Yeah, that's right. They're only so high.
So the tomatoes we got
that's right.
up. So I had to go to. There's all different kinds of wire. This is rebar, but they've got even something that's a little bit more flexible than this that I use. But it's not. It's about this tall.
Yeah.
And they still come out the top, but this is about as tall as I've seen them. This is. Yeah, I think we made these when I was president back in the 2000s.
We were a little slow getting to it, but because we didn't have heat this year in the greenhouse, I bought a small greenhouse, plastic with a tubular frame, and it's only like so wide and this tall and this deep, and I can put 8 trays, greenhouse trays in there.
You'd be surprised how many you can get in
We
there.
started the tomatoes here, and we decided we wanted a variety. So we have a beefsteak here. This is called an egg tomato. You see it has a pink color. It's an egg shape.
Not very many tomatoes on that.
Yeah. It is very productive and really a delicious tomato. They've picked the ripest ones already this morning, but that's some more beefsteaks there. There's a Copier striped tomato down the row. Rutgers over there. And
Heirloom.
Heirloom, that's right. And so is beefsteak. And then there's another one I don't remember.
Now, our listeners want to remember that we're in a bad area for funguses. This is So when you pick your tomato variety, you want to pick one that's resistant. None of them are completely where you don't ever get diseases, but at least resistant. And remember that the heirlooms are wonderful, but they are really susceptible to diseases, so you want to be careful about those. Yeah, you don't want to water the plants for sure. You want to water
the ground.
That's right, and the mulch helps also because those funguses come out of the soil up into the bottom leaves, and if you've got mulch on there,
it doesn't spatter.
Chances are better. Yeah,
that's right.
They're not 100%, but the chances are better.
Well, this year in this garden and in my other garden, the beefsteaks have been very productive. They've been healthy and they've really produced well.
And you've got 2 different kinds of tomatoes. You've got determinate and indeterminate.
Yes.
Determinate will only get so tall, and most of the fruits will happen all at once.
Yeah.
And then you got the indeterminate. They'll grow out the top of the cage sooner or later. They just keep on going.
That is right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what do we got next here? This is a different way to.
That's more tomatoes. Yeah, we did it differently. You got back to the cattle wire here.
Back to the cattle wire.
We just tried it to show what you can do. I traveled some in June, and when I did, I didn't keep the vines tied to the fence. So they kind of get down. But if you got straw, you're okay.
If you got straw, you just lay down on the ground. That's right. You don't want them. If you don't have straw, then if they get muddy and dirty, and the bugs get into them and stuff.
And these are more determinate, so they're not going to go too far out anyway.
And I have seen 2 rows of wire and then
You
tie
can
them
do that
up.
too.
Which even, like you can see this side over here is hard to tie up.
Yeah.
If you had 2 rows of wire.
Well, and some tomatoes are stiffer than others, and you can only bend them so far. if you're trying to tie them up, you have to be careful.
You want to tie them up when they're real small and tender,
right,
or else
right.
they'll break. You're right.
Behind you and at the end of the row is a compost bin that one of our members gave to us last month.
I've seen these on TV, but not exactly like this.
Well, you can see some pretty good stuff in here.
But
we put fairly good stuff in, but that's what it's doing. And it needs a little bit.
How does it work? How do you turn it?
Well, it turns like this.
Oh my! You get your exercise too.
Yep, there's a handle.
That's one
here.
thing about gardening. My doctor says that gardening is as good exercise as running down the road and all that. Yeah.
Well, it's how I get most of my exercise.
Okay.
That's good stuff.
That's good for next year, right?
We'll be using it next year for sure, if not this fall.
And you can put your kitchen waste in there too if you had something like this. And I've seen them be even bigger, but we have a compost bin over here that, believe it or not, I made that also.
That is good.
It's
and we haven't used it.
No, you have to work at that. That's work to use a compost bin.
Right.
It's not just something that comes easy.
It does take effort.
Yeah.
Here are some peppers. These first ones are bell peppers. They've just picked some. I think they're over in the box. And you still see, there's a nice one right here.
They're really dark green and looking well too.
Looking good, yeah. And then this is jalapeno through here. No, not here. Here. No, where am I? Jalapeno.
You can tell the difference. It's darker green and the yeah.
Jalapenos here.
Okay. Let's see how kind of man you are.
All right.
No?
I'm not going to do that.
Hey, Dan.
And this is a Serrano.
That's not as hot as I thought.
Serrano, I
Hot.
think. And they've picked some, so I don't.
Did the ladies bring some water?
Now you want water.
This is hot pepper. You can tell the
that's a
difference
hot
in the
pepper
plant.
there. Yep.
Now, what are these?
I think it's called a Serrano.
You can see
Yeah,
the
I've
big
never
difference
done
in
it
the plant
before.
right here and this.
Yeah. It's got a fuzzy
and then
look to it.
these even.
Yeah. And then there's more butternut squash behind you.
Yeah.
Later, we planted some more butternut squash.
More butternut squash. I love butternut squash. And the butternut squash soup is a delicacy. You see
We
that?
like it as a soup.
A lot of people don't like it, but if you'd like it, it's a really.
You can also season it the same way you would season pumpkin and make pumpkin pie out of butternut squash, and your people won't know
the difference.
Just use the same spices. It's the
And they're
same color,
easier-
same texture, and there it is.
They're easier to grow than pumpkins, and I'd say
I
it's
think,
easier to make.
Yeah.
Now this one's kind of a solitary plant, and this one.
It's a blackberry. It was here
blackberry.
when I came to the garden 3 summers back, and
Just to see if we could grow it in here.
if we netted it, we could keep the birds off pretty good. They get most of the berries.
Just for show, then.
The zinnias are attractants for pollinators. Bees, butterflies, other insects will be here, and that's bringing pollination to the garden. My mother had those in the 40s in her garden.
Most of them are perfect, and myself, that's my favorite flower to cut and bring in the house, because they bring them in the house. They'll last for a week in water.
Yep.
And you can just see that they don't get the recognition I think they deserve. They're beautiful, and they're so easy to grow. They're really
they really
easy.
are. Yeah, probably the easiest to grow in a garden. The next one is a Mexico torche flower. I don't even know what it is. And then I like to do sunflowers because I call them garden sentinels.
These are the Mexican flowers here?
Yes.
I have never seen those.
I hadn't either.
They're wonderful.
Yeah, Melissa brought those in. She said, let's try this. I said, okay.
Who did?
Melissa Thaxton's one of the partners who's not here today.
I got to have that in my garden.
It's beautiful.
Those plants, not only the bloom, but the plants are just beautiful. And one of my favorites.
Yeah. The bees are there always.
And these are easy to grow too.
Easy.
They're so easy. Now the big tall ones are beautiful, but they need support. I think a lot of times
they
they'll fall down,
over.
especially if you get a lot of wind and rain. And it really breaks your heart when you see them fall down. So you got to prop them back up. But the blooms sometimes get this big around.
They can.
And I don't know if you've seen it driving down the highway. You look over at the whole field of them. Have you seen?
When I lived in Minnesota, I saw tens and dozens of acres of hundreds of acres of sunflower seeds in North Dakota.
And these are some of my favorite. Are the smaller ones.
Yes.
All the different colors. You have a 1,000 different kinds now. It's one of the, other than tomatoes and corn, maybe the next most propagated and hybridized plant we have. And if you'll turn your head just a little bit, I'm going to steal this one right here. Well, crap, I'm not going to now.
Here, just take my pocket knife.
I'll get it
and do
later.
right.
But the birds are already eating on it.
Yeah.
And I'll get a...
Here, I got a pocket knife.
You got a pocket knife real quick?
The hot weather, dry weather makes this.
That'll be in my yard next year. That's how easy it is. I can just throw them. I can throw them on the ground and they come up to just perfect. Nobody else gets any, right? That's the last one.
We have a volunteer onion.
Volunteer onion.
And this is jade green beans bush. They've already passed. We harvested last week.
Oh, they look like crap, but they've already done their duty.
They've been very productive, and we'll pull those up within 2 or 3 days.
This is the result of a bean beetle.
We don't spray. We don't use organic, or we don't use poison sprays. And this year, I didn't even use neem oil or pyrethrin.
Right.
I usually would, but I just didn't get to it.
But your crop is early, and
they produced. They did the job.
Now these two are really producing.
This is a favorite to me. Purple hull peas.
They've already picked them this morning.
Grow on stems. Well, here's one. They grow on stems like this. They turn purple when they're ready to be picked.
And that's full of little beans.
So they're easy to pick. Here's another.
Yeah.
And that's short pods. They grow longer and fuller. But
you gotta shell them.
They want to grow here, and they're easy to pick. You do have to shell, but that's okay. Sit with your spouse or your friend and talk. And
on the porch.
On the porch.
With a Budweiser. No?
Whatever.
Glass of wine.
Yeah, something. and they're great. Patty, my wife, has frozen a dozen pints and canned that many more.
Okay, we're getting short, so let's go down here and look at this corn real quickly.
Okay.
We got eggplant back here. We could have done 2 shows today, Norman, I guess.
This is peaches and cream.
Peaches, that's what everybody likes, peaches and cream.
Well,
I don't know why.
White and yellow kernels together, mixed, and it's ready to pick. I see some silks that are dark.
They say you need 3 or 4 rows. You don't really need 3 or 4 rows for harp, but sometimes if you've only got 1 row, you might want to hand pollinate. You can take this and sprinkle it on the silks and stuff. I don't know if you've ever done that or not.
I haven't. That's a
in
good
order to
idea.
Get full pollination
sure.
sometimes.
Yeah, very good. And next to you is eggplants and beans.
We've lost Norman.
Here I am.
This is beautiful. It's a half moon wire, but we're out of time today. We'll have to come back and see the rest of the garden, and you've got plenty more to see. And thank you for having us today. And thank your workers. Thank all your ladies for helping us.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming.
And harvesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is Bud Qualk. I'm your host. Next time, Master Gardening. I'll see you then.